Oh no, my glasses. That was me doing an impression of Michael.
Rude. Ouch.
If you're ready to bast a beat and you want to slap your boom mic with your feet like John Watkins,
Is this more MacLeod?
welcome. Yes, this is Uncle Touchy himself.
I don't think it ever won't be.
It's we do all MacLeod all the
just-
time here.
Yeah.
Would you say that we're just filled with MacLeod?
We're touchy-feely here, is what we are.
MacLeod's load. Say that 5 times fast.
5 times fast.
Load. Ah!
Welcome,
Funny.
friends and listeners, to another bombastic and bumpin' edition of the Disinformed podcast. I'm Shane,
I'm John.
And I'm Michael.
and we are so extremely excited to have you here today that we are almost as alluring as Uncle Touchy.
Almost. We were talking before we started recording that we wonder if he'll ever see the picture that we posted or hear the episodes, and whether or not, or how long we can actually get away with using his royalty-free music while calling him by our own nickname.
That man's fame level. We are a gnat on an elephant's ass compared to that man. He has no clue nor care or concern. His music has been used in like a Scorsese film.
Fuck off.
For real.
Which one?
Wolf of Wall Street.
Bullshit.
No, that's for real. Look up his Wikipedia.
Check
I
the
will
facts.
do that.
Yeah,
I
do
will,
it.
I
yeah,
will.
no, he's got legit bona fides. When I had to look up his picture and get everything prepped to mess around with that, I was like, I'm gonna read about this gentleman for a moment. And again, I was really impressed.
Did
He's
you
got.
fuck his mom too?
I did not. I can't find her, but I did find his credentials, and they are just about as big as my dick, which means it's a short list. But
That's fair.
they're great.
Fair enough. Fair
I was
enough.
going to say you
better
should
than
do
me.
an episode on him.
Well, it feels good to be back.
Homage.
Yes, I think
feel
you know.
rejuvenated now that we're.
Oh, you
doing
took
this.
a dip in the rejuvenating waters.
I did. One episode per week feels nice in the moment. I actually, yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It feels good. I'm glad we decided on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, because you don't get like the barn sour feeling that you do when you know you've got another 2 hours ahead of you. So you don't like, if you know you only got an hour or so to bust out, it's a lot easier to get sort of prepped for. You're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I can just
Also,
bust this out. I got the energy.
I listened to the edit, and then I listened to it on Monday to keep up. So I had the energy to do it this time. So,
Wow.
Dang.
guys, I think I'm trying now.
You're almost
Oh.
human.
It scared me.
Almost. Don't scare me.
John,
Yeah.
have you figured out how to feel yet?
Huh?
Okay.
Wait, you mean those things that you got in high school?
Yes.
Like feelings?
The feels. Yes. So I have an interesting thing to broach here. I don't want to look at Showtime. So I had to look up trigger warnings for
Okay.
today's content. And then I started thinking, because I had, so I'm just going to drop the name here. So one of my colleagues, Steven, who has become a recurring character on the show. Whenever I say one of my coworkers, Steven's the one who listens. So Steven said he got through most of the episode last week. And then he had like maybe 15 to 20 minutes left, I think. And I was like, oh, that's just John's, would you rathers. So, you can catch that. And he's like,
no.
okay. And then he came in today for work and he's like, so I listened to the rest of the episode. I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, I shouldn't have.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, okay, cool. I was like, yeah, it's really difficult. We have a very particular sense of humor, you and I. So, 100 duck-sized horses or,
Is that what got
one
him?
horse-sized. No, I don't know. I didn't ask any further.
Yeah, that's rude.
But then it started occurring to me, like, just aside from Steven, casting no aspersions on him because he's a marvelous man and he actually listens to us. So I love him to death. But I think of our entire show is a giant trigger. Like, we
that's
refer to Uncle Touchy as a constant. It's a running character. And I was like, if I look at how discourteous, not to bring the mood down, but I was like, yeah, that's kind of a shitty thing to do if someone's actually had a bad incident. Like, our running character's Uncle Touchy.
Yeah.
I blame Patton Oswalt, but still, like, we find it funny. Someone out there probably hates us because of it. So,
Yeah, I mean, that explains the numbers.
which, today just doubled according to Michael. So congratulations, boys.
Well, it turns out 0 to 2. It's a pretty big jump.
It's a huge, it's monumental, folks.
Just to put numbers in reference here, we had 56 downloads today, and it was essentially 2 people downloading every single episode.
Now, how do you know that?
I fuck
Because
them
I
all and I
checked the-
kill myself.
Touche.
So you looked at every individual episode to see if the number went up?
No,
Well,
you
no,
can click
Podbean,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, you can click on the individual day, and
Oh,
it'll
you
tell
can actually get the
it'll give you
users?
breakdown.
Yeah, you can go
okay.
deep
All the
analytic on it. Yeah.
All right.
Tasty data.
I like the hand gesture you made with tasty was like, cupping testicles.
He made the gesture of when you have 2 dicks on both sides of your face and you're out of each one.
Did
one
you
He
side.
was,
like pop
he was
the
doing
lid
the
off?
walrus.
Isn't that how you do it?
I don't pop the.
Philip
There's no lid on it.
Philip didn't complain.
It's
Huh?
like, how many dicks have y'all sucked?
Only my father's.
I was going to say, we all have technique here, but I was a short study.
Also, Stephen, I'm sorry.
He's, I'm sure it's also he was suffering migraines at the time, so I sincerely doubt that he wanted to hear about us
Listening to my
69ing our
voice on a
fathers.
migraine is not the proper medication.
No, definitely
Not at
not.
all.
Mine doesn't help
It'd
either.
be like
so,
a shot of whiskey and maybe a bullet. I don't know.
so before we get started, I'm going to say
Whoa.
this on the mic because I want to make sure that we get enough advanced warning. So, 1, the content warnings for the episode are going to be listed on the end of the show notes page. So, with all of our other information about the song, so you can check that there. But I also want to note that this episode will contain depictions of violence and mutilation that some people may find disturbing. So, bear that in mind before you go forward. If you want to dip out on this episode, no one's going to blame you. But I have to provide context for how we get into this story. And I had a very interesting roommate back in the day. And I also want to say I want none of this to sound homophobic. So it's an interesting conversation.
By
And
saying that,
Uh-huh.
you're already
Immediately,
sounding it.
yeah.
yes, but I think it's a situation where I had a weird prank played on me and I don't know how to run. But so this roommate was very fun. I liked him a lot. We were living together for like 4 years, but I would bring dates over. Okay. And he would walk out of his room with his shirt off and play with his nipples the entire time.
Pretty hot.
And like he would do things like when he was eating ice cream, he would invert the spoon in his mouth as he was eating and then like draw it out very delicately.
Ooh, doggy.
Like, so he was doing things to be incendiary a lot of the times. Right. And I know this, but we had kind of a major blow up at one point and my computer died. So I went online. I said, hey, can I borrow your computer? Because I need to pay the electric bill and, then I can run. And he's like, yeah, I'll leave it on for you. And he was a gamer, so he had a huge system, very similar to Michael's here. So I went on, I paid the thing, and on his desktop is like a Windows Media folder. And it's the only thing that's open.
1996.
This was, and around this time frame, this was probably like maybe 2007, maybe?
11.
I'm trying to figure out the time. Maybe it was less than that, but long story short, too late. I opened the Windows Media file because I'm curious.
Uh-oh.
They are all clips of bald men with beards fucking each other. Like licking the top of each other's heads, and I'm like, and of course, me being
head?
me, both. But like actual, shorn-headed men. So I'm like, okay. And there were tons of them. And I opened multiples to make sure, because I'm just like, this is fucked up, man. So in my head, I'm going, this motherfucker's got a crush on me. And we've lived together for 4 years, and he hasn't had the decency to at least even discuss it with me. And, because I would not mind getting my dick sucked, at random moments.
But what if that's not his thing?
If it's not, then, whatever it
What if
is.
it's the opposite?
Yeah, he might hate me. He might want to kill me in my sleep.
No. I meant, what if he wants you to suck his dick?
I mean, we have to talk. I've got to figure out some way for, me to get an
If
advantage
our president
here,
taught us
'cause,
anything, there's a quid pro quo.
Indeed, Hannibal Lecter. So it was just a weird situation that started. But another side product of our relationship was when we were living together for my birthday, he gave me a book about a serial killer. Oh, it's going to get even
You were
crazier.
gonna say a blowjob.
Yes, he sucked my dick.
I was like, holy shit! Why haven't
he's
we
also-
talked about this in our 8 years?
Do you remember that book of like Clive Barker artwork that I showed you that I
Yeah.
had? He gave me that as well.
Oh, it's very
and
sweet.
the Clive Barker artwork, if you are not aware, it's very like
Visceral.
phallocentric. So there are so many depictions of dicks, and they're anthropomorphic dicks. So like they have legs and arms and walk around spitting on each other. There's an entire cityscape depicted with penises. Like it's the whole structures are all made out of cocks.
So essentially,
So-
how obsessed my coworker Wayne is with shit, Clive Barker is equally obsessed with dick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bless him. And as a point of fact, I was thinking about this the other day. Many of my favorite authors are all openly gay men. Because Palahniuk, Barker, like a lot of...
Palahniuk's gay?
Yeah,
I
Palahniuk's
had
gay.
no idea. I mean, I should have.
Yeah. It's why Fight Club, to me, when people start casting aspersions about it being this overly sort of like machismo bit of nonsense of like men being men, it's like, it's an openly gay male talking about, the fact he got into a fist fight once, and then everyone in his office looked at him like he was a leper for the rest of the week because he had a black eye. They didn't know how to respond to him. So he's like, how would it be if you did this routinely?
Right.
So, interesting. But, okay, so I got really darker than I intended to for this. But so he gave me a book about this serial killer. So I should state, I studied a lot of like psychology in college, and I find it really interesting.
It is
So
interesting.
this dark dive into the human psyche of what are the things that cause a normal human being to start trailing into this aberrant behavior. And so I studied it, and then I followed it. So, that's why I am a dark and deeply disturbed individual.
Yeah, I can
obviously.
see that.
It's a bad joke, kids. So he gave me this book.
No, it's actually fact. I checked.
Yes,
this
you're
morning.
right. I've
You
killed
do both.
people.
Yep.
So many times.
I saw your Twitter.
Well, I had like at my at the library I used to work at, I had like a whole bookshelf behind me, and it was all stuff about serial killers at the time. Because I was reading a lot of stuff like the BTK killer, the Diary of Jeffrey Dahmer, the
Jesus.
Black Dahlia murder files. Like I read a lot of stuff, and I just found it fascinating. So there were a bunch of Gacy books and everything. And one of my colleagues came up and he's like, Shane, I'm a little afraid looking at that bookshelf that someday you might put me into a dumpster somewhere. And I was like, Henry. I wouldn't do something that sophomoric. I would, kill you and dismantle your body and then dissolve you in acid so that no one would find any of the materials lying about. I don't want to be caught.
The only thing left of you would be your nipples on my belt.
So, knowing this buddy of mine gives me a book about a serial killer. And I was completely unaware of who this person was. And I read this book, and it traumatized me.
What book?
So I'm forgetting what the actual title of the book is. I will have to include that in the later show notes. The gentleman's title is referred to as the Cannibal of Rotenburg. His name is Armin Meiwes. And that is going to be the topic of today's episode, because I want to share with you, gentlemen, much akin to Michael's, sick fascination with bad fan fiction, my fascination with serial killers got me into some hot water when reading this. So now we've got some stern looks in the room, and I want you all to relax and have fun. This is a funny topic. We're going to get into some interesting
I'm not
things.
stern. My phone is still blowing up with dumb bullshit. So
Ooh.
the stern look is I have things that I'm doing right now. I
Stop
need to
distracting me?
Yeah, I need to disconnect. I don't
Okay.
need Shane calling me out on every single episode that I pick my phone up 18,000 fucking times, even though he's holding a goddamn tablet the entire
I have
time
to read
looking at
this,
porn.
John. I looked at porn before I came here. Thank you.
I look at porn and then I come.
Here. Yes. Oh, and that porn can contain anything that I would like or you would
I learned
like.
today that there is actually an algorithm to Pornhub. Well, I didn't learn it.
I mean, how would
as
there
so
not
much.
be?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't.
I can't see
Okay,
why there wouldn't be.
So
either.
you think? Should we do a trigger here? No.
Do it.
So you think that I'm going to go on Pornhub, thinking that it's tracking my habits?
I mean,
So essentially, I
you
was-
are in a Hulk smash like blind rage whenever you're looking for adult material anyway. So yeah, you don't think about these things.
I was listening to the last pod, and it's their loose fit episode.
Okay.
And at some point, they made some joke about like step sibling porn, and Ben Kissel being like, I don't want to look at that. And everyone being like, well, then stop clicking on it because it's going to keep generating that. And then the main host, Marcus, he was like, or just sign up for premium and tell Pornhub what you want to see.
You know, the funny thing is that you're not watching it for the plot.
No.
You're mostly picking the actress or actor that you are looking for, and that's what you're basing it off. So, like, any of the descriptions, like...
Outside of the problematic, like, titles, like, you can kind of tell what you're getting into.
Right.
I don't really think Riley Reid is related in any way, shape, or form to this gentleman.
No.
You know?
And furthermore, it's like... They always play it, it's like, oh, step-sibling. I'm like, that's a really weird degree of difference from you're having sex with your actual mother. Or other things that they try to fop off on that site where you're like, come on, really? Yeah. So, come on. Come on.
Come on.
Really, come. I'm waiting. Kevin. All right, so we're going to need to laugh through this because it's in danger of being... Son of a bitch. We're on the verge of this being like the Stanford Prison Experiment. So, but you're gonna appreciate what I had to endure reading this book because it was far more graphic in the depictions here.
I really appreciate the preamble.
Yes, I want to make sure I don't just spring this on you.
The context is important because if you just came in saying what the book was, I'd be like, right, and
so
I like the foreplay. It's
good.
Nice. Can't just dry hump it.
Oh, we're going to.
Well, it's not as enjoyable.
I was going to say, speaking of dry humping.
All right, Daddy,
the Cannibal of Rotenburg. So Armin Meiwes, who was born on December 1st of 1961, the year of our Lord, or the year of someone else's Lord, in John's case.
Hail Satan.
Hail Stan. He was a German man who achieved international notoriety for killing and eating a voluntary victim that he had found via the internet.
Tinder. Wait,
close enough.
That's bullshit. Not internet. Yeah?
Oh, no, well, not in
Later
61.
He didn't find it when he was born.
He was born in 61. You know what's funny? I actually was looking back the other day about the Bell Witch thing to do some house cleaning. So the reason you got all confused about Andrew Jackson is it was immediately following the war was when he was there investigating the stuff with the Bell Witch. So he was not president yet. None of this stuff took place in like the time when the manual was published. So we had flashed forward to, we'd gotten to the publication of the manual and then went back to the Jackson thing. And you're like, but how? This was right after like the War of 1812. How did this occur? Well, it was like 1814 when he was investigating the stuff there.
Okay, because I was confused because you had originally said that like it started around the 1820s or 30s or something like that. Okay.
So in listening back to the episode, I was like, well, you were right. So you weren't as, dumbfounded as it sounded like you were.
I may not know a lot, but I think I know a little bit about history.
All
Eloquently put, Michael. Thank you. All right,
I may be dumb, but I'm not stupid.
Do you want
Omicron cuck?
Hey, Greek life forever, man. Leave him alone.
I only had 3 cake stands for this shirt.
3 cake stands?
Cake stands. That Starbucks suddenly got a whole lot more interesting when you're doing like a cake stand. Let me put this pop in your mouth. Hold on.
Sorry, I'm not trying to derail this podcast.
Trust me, you've got another hour and a half of this happening, so get ready. If you thought you were making that movie, it's not happening. I have a challenge for you kids. There's only one lie in this episode.
Ah, shit. I give up.
So, game on.
I'm really ashamed that we're disinforming the public.
You should be. So, after Meiwes and the victim jointly attempted to eat the victim's severed penis, Meiwes killed his victim and proceeded to eat a large amount of his flesh.
So he didn't like the cock.
It's hard to like it.
Let's keep going.
So, because of his deeds, Meiwes is also known as the Rotenburg Cannibal, or Der Metzgermeister, the Master Butcher.
Ooh.
Since eating prison, eat that prison, bitch. So, since entering prison, Meiwes has become a vegetarian. You can't eat the meat anymore. I'm sorry. I mean, once you've had it, how do you go back?
If you had to decide between prison meat and just being a vegetarian, I think I would just choose being a vegetarian.
Yeah, give me the veggies. I'll take it. I'll eat a cucumber. It's got the same texture. So, and he has since joined a prisoners group favoring Green Party politics. Born in the German town of Kassel, computer technician Meiwes he led a very lonely childhood. His father was a stern man who was largely disinterested in his son. When his parents' marriage broke up, Meiwes was only 8. His father abandoned the family, never to contact them again.
Oh, Kevin MacLeod, why would you do that?
Well, he wanted to be someone's uncle. So, it then fell to Meiwes' mother to become the dominant parent. That's such a weird word. So she tied him down and spanked him with boards and bristles.
I've been a bad boy.
The muscles from Brussels.
He is German, so I mean, we can imagine this is going to run. His balls will get nailed to a step stool somewhere.
It's just like a comically ripped woman, you know, just
Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS, just
watermelons for biceps,
bludgeoning him,
beating the shit out of him.
When you finish your damn dinner, eat that cock.
It's a cucumber.
Oh.
And
So
that was the world's worst German accent.
You're working on it, though. I appreciate that. So she would admonish him in public and insisted on accompanying him everywhere. So, unlike my relationship with Linda, where I insist on accompanying her everywhere.
Right.
It's
Attached to the breast.
Meiwes, lacking a father figure, created an imaginary brother called Frankie, through whom he vented his first cannibalistic thoughts, as Frankie would listen to Meiwes, something we understand his mother never did. And we're being a bit flippant about this, so it's tragic, but still, we're trying to make this funny,
so
you bastards.
You've read a lot of books on serial killers
I
at this
have.
point. So it's a common thread that you look at the childhood and you look at the upbringing on why the behavior kind of like sprouted. And usually it's from neglect. And it's like, case in point right here. Mm-hmm. Like, dad was a piece of shit. Mom didn't really handle it well. Mm-hmm. And then just started nurturing.
This is like the Ed Gein story, the Ed Kemper story, like a lot of, and then there's a lot of associations with physical trauma, like mental trauma. There are a lot of short, sharp shocks to the head. That's what they claim. Gacy got hit in the head with like a baseball bat when he was younger. So it's a lot of interesting disconnects that happen.
Yeah.
But
and the quantum physics behind all of it, right, Michael?
The quantum mechanics cause serial killing. So
when Marty McFly came back and hit this guy across the head and then disappeared after fucking his own mother.
Yeah, because he had to seduce. Well, then because no one came back from the future to seduce him so that he would turn back to good. Like Voldemort.
Marty was bad?
No, Marty was
annoying. Anyway,
a side piece.
Shakes, I got him. Anywho, at age 12, Meiwes began to fantasize about eating his friends so that they would become a part of him and stay with him forever.
Aw, that's
a
sweet.
Desperate solution for a very lonely and misunderstood only child.
Wait, lie. He didn't have any friends.
He had friends.
Okay. Well, you kept
his
saying
friends
he was
were
lonely,
his
so
right
Out
and
of
left.
the heartless bastard in the room.
I was going to say, of all the things I've said, Michael's still trying to scratch the surface of me over here. So in 1999, hello Internet, Meiwes' mother died and left him the family's large mansion house in Amstetten. Totally alone for the first time in his life, which is very similar to the Ed Gein thing. Without the demands of his controlling mother, he reportedly constructed a shrine to her in the house, complete with a plastic mannequin that he would lay on a pillow each night. After his mother's death, he also developed an interest in internet pornography. John.
What you trying to say?
So I just want to see, what the algorithm picks up on Mr. Meiwes here.
I wonder if John has a shrine to his mother.
I have one.
I was going to say,
well, of
Shane
course,
carries
we know
that totem.
There's a giant jug of milk on the other side of it.
Guess where it came from, Mike?
Me.
It's half and half.
Oh. Well played. Oh, all right. So, particularly sites that featured torture and pain. I'm sorry. Forgive us, our sins, Lord of Darkness. Through these sites, Meiwes found his way onto his first chat rooms about cannibalism. And hey, haven't we all been there?
So I guess the reason that I called bullshit when I heard 61 is because I don't I can't recall point blank when the internet was like, boom, available. And I know it's so easy now, especially being so far removed from it, that like early memories for me, like I remember dial-up, I remember AOL, but I didn't really have access before that.
I'm thinking like 98 is when I remember having it like
right. Well, Y2K
accessible.
when like around the 99 to 2000, the Y2K thing, I remember internet
Right.
there-ish, but
There were Usenet, I think, servers or whatever they were called. I think like in the mid 90s. I know like, oh shit, what was it? No,
But can
whatever.
you-
I'll fact check myself later.
Okay.
But
that even peels back the layer further for me. I'm sorry for interrupting. He had to wait for these things to buffer for like 8 hours to watch torture porn.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the patience to let a website load for 5 fucking seconds. So like,
Like dial-up days of waiting for an
F5.
image to render. Dear God, you had to wait 20 minutes for each individual bar to like scroll across the screen.
Kids
I told
these
this
days.
story recently to Becky and Kristen, but back in the day of dial-up and me hitting puberty and realizing that I just wanted to feverishly jerk off onto
Before the
everything,
carpal tunnel kicked in.
when my parents were away, and when it wasn't just when my parents were away, it's when everyone was out of the house, which was seldom. I had a lot of people living in this house, an Irish Catholic household. I would boot up AOL and I would like Google whatever. I think Carmen Electra was one. Like I would look up. It's still how I look up things to this day. It's like you enter in a name and type nude and then giggle to yourself like a little bitch, and then you hit go. But I would print the good pictures, and then I would put them into a 3-ring binder and I would hide it and I would use it when I wanted to. I made my own nudie mags.
You have to, yeah.
But then I was so paranoid about like getting rid of the pictures that I would take them to school and then I would throw them away at school.
You and I talked about this where like my mom had a really huge stigma against pornography when I was younger. She's like, it's the household joys of being raised LDS. So she just never wanted it in the house. The first porn I ever bought, I remember, and this is where Melissa has stopped the episode.
Sorry,
was
we always get to this point.
it always happens. It's just I've explained, like, it was such a part of my life being a single male for so long, also being a celibate single male. 4chan is going to rip me apart. But so like I got a really strong acquaintance with it. There was no helping that. So it was Sea Sluts Volume 5, and that's SEA. They were on the shanty. They were on a little dinghy, pun intended.
Goodness.
And I watched it when my folks were in Laughlin for one of their like anniversaries.
VHS or DVD?
VHS.
Fuck me.
There you
I know.
go.
And the box was huge, pun intended.
It was like the Titanic.
It was
VHS
like
where
the
it's
huge, like 6 feet long. You had to carry it over your shoulder, bringing it in. So, and then I was so embarrassed because my numbers. That entire weekend was spent with nothing but just like rewind, start over. So I couldn't walk properly by the time my folks got back, and I was so embarrassed. I threw it away in a dumpster behind my work before I went in. And this is like me at 17.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was painful. So, yeah, you and I both have similar habits here, being raised in our lovely Christian households.
It's almost like if you repress your sexuality, it finds a way to rear its ugly, horny head.
Life finds a way.
Thank you, Dr. Malcolm.
Thanks,
I
Jeff.
think I've used that quote at least like 2 or 3 times.
It's,
Well, I mean, if you're a scientist or understand physics, then you're Jeff Goldblum.
I wish I
And
had
you're
those
white.
abs.
you're always
White
on the
piece
lookout
of
for a
shit.
future SX Mrs. Michael. So,
That was a quote from a movie called Jurassic Park.
that same film you were just quoting.
I don't think I. What
Yeah,
is
you
Jurassic
haven't
Park?
seen it, I
we
know.
were on the topic of eating dicks, which I think we've just done for 3 minutes.
So, Armin claimed when he was a child he had enjoyed his mother reading him the fairy tale Hansel and Gretel, concerning a
course.
witch who traps 2 children and prepares to eat the boy. The bit where Hansel is to be eaten was interesting. You wouldn't believe how many Hansels are whizzing around the internet.
That was a quote.
Yes.
Oh.
Are you going to do every quote in the German?
Yes, I will.
All right, that's a good
Yes,
Are you going to do every quote in the German?
Yes, I will.
All right, that's a good
Brace for it,
distinction.
motherfucker.
Sorry.
So Muse then began his pathway towards becoming a real-life cocksucker. I'm sorry.
Oh, good God.
Brace. Real-life Hannibal Lecter by posting a message on the Cannibalism website, The Cannibal Cafe, which sounds like a Netflix series.
That's
that's
not
getting
real. Bullshit. There's no forum called the Cannibal Cafe.
The Cannibal
believe it.
Cafe.
I believe
Yep.
it.
I'm telling you, that's why I threw out the bait here, because this is so weird. In 2000, Muse created a post indicating, I am looking for a young, well-built man aged 18 to 30 to slaughter. He screened candidates for a series of several months. Many of the men who reveled in the fantasy of being eaten found the idea less appealing when facing the knife. One particular individual, a man called Borg Joes, was about to become Muse's first victim.
Borg.
Exactly. However, while he laid out on the table being prepared to be butchered, Joes complained of feeling ill and asked to be released.
Oh, actually, I felt so good this morning. There's a little tickle.
I
in the
need
back
to
of my
make
throat,
poopies.
and
You don't want to
Oh,
eat
God, I
me.
can't attend the dick-eating murder party tonight. I'm so sorry.
So he asked to be released. Muse obliged him. The final man to reply to Muse's internet message was Bernd Jürgen Brandis.
Not hungry, thanks.
Exactly. Muse was, though, as you will see.
Oh, yeah, that pun fits really well today.
It does. Welcome.
I thought you did that intentionally.
He stumbled into grace.
Where am I?
What year is it?
You're in hell.
When am I?
And I am the devil. So, Brandis was a 43-year-old bisexual engineer who wrote to Muse on Valentine's Day, 2001, which
Cute.
is appropriate because
Comes
this
right out
will
of this-
be
Yeah.
the pre-Valentine's Day massacre for us. So happy Valentine's Day, all. This was 19 years ago. The pair discovered each other in a chat room for cannibal fetishists under the ad, Dinner or Your Dinner, in which Brandis offered the chance to eat me alive. They subsequently exchanged various lurid emails discussing the best way in which Brandis should be eaten and his body used afterwards.
Do they argue on who pays the check?
I know who's picking up the tip. I imagine it's like one of those weird sushi boards where you just lay out naked and he's like, take whatever you want.
Oh my! Oh, you would never see it. But it reminds me of Bruno, where
Okay.
he makes one of the humanitarians eat off of a human plate.
Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
Bruno?
So, yes,
Isn't it
that's
Bruno?
Sam's dog.
Wait.
We'll get back to it
Uh-huh.
later.
Yeah, hold on.
We're devolving. So, Brandis even suggested his skull could be used as an ashtray. I'll bring myself as breakfast, Brandis replied. Breakfast? I don't know why that.
Breakfast.
I'll have an
Posse.
appetite. Rely on it, Muse replied. On March 9th, 2001, Brandis went to Muse home in Amstetten. They agreed to film the entire gruesome slaughter, though the videos mercifully have never been released by the court. For part of the evening, they sat around like a pair of tech nerds, drinking coffee, smoking, and chatting about computers. Looking at you over there, tech-tastic.
You think I know shit about computers?
You run dual monitors.
Dual
My
monitors and
computer
quantum
has
mechanics.
2 ports. I take the port and I plug it in and it works.
All right,
What was that?
What
You
a-
talking shit about quantum mechanics?
What a dirty computer it is, both ports.
Get out
that
quantum
HDMI.
physics. Thanks.
Give me that cable. So, at one point, Brandis suffered a change of heart and asked to be taken back to the train station. Just before he got on the train for Berlin, and that's that midnight train to Berlin, that old
Midnight Meat
Motown
Train.
song. Yes, thank you. He suggested that with a big dose of sleeping pills, some schnapps, and cold medicine, he might be able to go through with it. Drug me down to hell.
How many fuck terrible puns can we fit?
So many that you'll be amazed. We're just at the tip of this. So I like that. Again, there's a bit of editorializing here that's contained in. I pulled from a bunch of different articles to kind of cobble this narrative.
The book,
yes,
but you're kind of compiling. You kind of did like a cliff notey.
Yes.
You know,
so there is some editorializing here. It is not mine. So just for but they say the sick couple, and I mean, listen. Some people
not
really
like
enjoy cannibalism.
Sick, bruh.
And who am I to judge if you want to eat, bruh?
Bruh.
So, the sick couple had sex before Brandis demanded Muse cut off his penis so that they could eat it together.
And this is when he's like super high on, or
yes.
not high, but like just
sipping on
dosed.
gin and juice. Yes. So
I mean, that's cute. They're sharing a moment together.
Yes. Cut
I mean,
off my cock and eat it.
To have sex when you're super stoned is pretty radical.
Listen, if
Where
everyone
you're like, cut off my cock, I won't need it anymore.
More like, I don't even know where my cock is.
Wait, let's put out a like a milk carton with it on it. So, have you seen this dick? Now, the difficulty of this is, if I had a nickel for every time I told someone to eat my dick, like, I'd be a millionaire by now, but I didn't mean it literally. This person did. So Brandis then yells, "Do it! Now!"
No!
Prompting Muse to proceed. Brace. Muse claimed that even then he hesitated, but eventually capitulated to the demand in an orgy of gore that marked the culmination of his obsession with cannibalism since puberty.
So he's hit the point he's always wanted to hit.
Yes, so this is the beautiful climax, pun intended, of a rapturous, delightful rhapsody he had been chasing since his youth.
Mama.
Mia, let me go.
The first knife Muse attempted to utilize was too dull.
Oh
my God.
Oh.
So, he was not able to actually sever it, which is fun. This was depicted in really detailed, like, lurid discussions in the book, so I'm saving you that. The second knife he chose did it, but it still took some sawing to make this happen.
Goldilocks it?
Yeah. Here's the quote. He screamed horribly, but it was short. The cutting, not the penis.
Yeah.
Maybe for 20 to 30 seconds. Muse recollected in an interview showing no emotion. The blood was squirting from the open wound similar to a fountain. Which is not something you want to see at the Golden Corral. Our cocklet fall
they did
over.
this all in public. It was the strangest thing. I'm just eating my burger, and all of a sudden someone just puts their cock onto a cutting board, and wouldn't you know it, first time, didn't work.
And see what's funny, they're German, so the whole Russian joke of Isaac cut your cock off is not going to be employed here at all.
What?
Yes.
I've never heard of that.
The Russian doctor cut your cock off. You know, he mostly does foreskin removal. So, anywho.
Michael, do you get it? Do you
Is
understand
that
the
a
joke?
reference to a movie? Or...
No, it's just someone's bad pun,
it's a
Michael.
play on... Never mind.
What's a play?
Fuck off, are you Russian? Anywho. Brandis tried to eat a piece of the penis raw, but it was apparently too chewy. So he tried to eat his own cock, and he couldn't chomp through it, as you'd expect.
Totally that scene in Hannibal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like feeding him his own brain.
Uh-huh.
Just like,
Art imitates
God.
life. So then Muse proceeded to blanch it, season it with salt, pepper, and garlic powder, and then pan fry it.
And all this time...
He is bleeding out.
Yeah.
Yes. So you've got a gentleman who's just had his penis severed. He's sitting in a chair, watching someone then prepare it like he's a fucking sous chef. Like, okay, first we're going to powder this down, pamper it, and then toss it in a pan, little oil, little vinegar, start shimmering
And then add a
around.
little cream fraiche.
Just a little dab of parsley to put on the plate for presentation, and then cocksayu.
Oh, Jesus.
Unfortunately, he said, it shriveled to almost nothing, meaning that neither of them were able to consume the dismembered part.
Wow. What
Well,
a
it's
So-
fine because it grows back.
Yes.
So they can try it again.
Like a lizard tail.
Yeah, they can try. He did it once. They can do it again.
So, you go through all this, you cut a guy's cock off, and then you can't even fucking eat it. Ain't
What
it
a
beautiful?
waste. What a waste.
I know. It's just...
Get your cock and you can't
It's
even
not
eat it.
very sustainable, is what I'm saying.
I mean,
So-
it is very farm-to-table fresh, but...
Thank God. So, losing large amounts of blood from the injury, Brandis lay bleeding to death in a bath over the next 3 hours, while Muse read a Star Trek book.
Okay,
Out
so
loud?
it is confirmed now.
Okay.
They weren't really concerned with the bleeding out, so tech nerds, but not very savvy on, I don't know, like, how the human body works.
Certainly
a little bit.
not.
Like,
Well, I
Like, the idea that something's going to coagulate there. Now, granted, the body is naturally sort of built to move a lot of blood down there in the first place, but it's
yeah,
a long process.
I can't pretend that I know. Like,
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I wouldn't know what to do in that situation, but I also wouldn't be in that situation.
Right.
But if I was planning and building to this, and also not intending to murder, maybe I would have, like, had a little checklist on,
Well-
like, how not to fucking kill this
Well,
person.
He was intending to murder him, though.
Okay.
That was the whole
maybe
point. Yeah.
that's easier to just bleed out as opposed to like, well, I'm going to slit your throat and it's going to be violent. It's something that's a little bit more.
Where this is like an entirely different complexion on the matter, because most of these things are done as rage, and there's a dehumanization process
Maybe
involved.
that's why my wire's getting crossed.
Yeah,
because
so
it
he
never
wasn't-
seems- I know that you said voluntary at the beginning, but I don't know.
He was less a victim, more an accomplice, which is what's even weirder. So you have two individuals whose various sort of like mental instability is building on one another. So it's kind of so one person wanted to be eaten, the other person wanted to consume someone, and they just found and reveled in it. So that's the other thing, is he didn't want to kill him outright because they just had sex. They had just had like a really intimate evening with one another. They're sharing something that both of them have fantasized about for a long time. So it's like really self-indulgent for both. So
in the book, does it get into? Sorry, what was the voluntary guy's name again?
Brandis is the
Brandis?
last name.
Did they get into Brandis's history at all in the book?
No, because again, it's really easy. Or I mean, they may have. It's been years since I've read this thing, but I don't remember
Because I
them
think
detailing a lot of his
equally
life.
fascinating to have him voluntarily. It's just it's like the people that commit suicide by cop.
Right.
Like I think it's really fascinating. I wonder if they had a similar upbringing, or if like in the documentation or transcripts of them talking together, if there was like oh yeah, my mom was a ripped fucking German woman and beat me too.
I'm sure, but then
Brussels.
the funny thing.
The muscles from fucking Brussels.
Hashtag. The thing they do to point to earlier with his quote of saying you can't imagine how many, Hansels there are in the internet. Like, apparently there were a lot of people that responded to this ad as well. Now, most of them didn't follow through with it, obviously, but I mean, apparently this is a fantasy that a lot of people have, like,
If there's a
actively
forum
sustained.
for it,
yeah.
Also, was it bullshit that it was too chewy the first go around?
No.
Fuck.
That shriveled up.
I'm actually trying now.
True.
Like,
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
what
like
I'm
it's
saying
easier
is,
to
like-
try when there's one, because then I'm hyper focused.
Yeah, and you're engaged with it, and I'm like, this is so bizarre, I don't have to try very hard. So.
No, you are quite literally reading from your show notes.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of improv on your part.
So, losing large amounts of blood from the injury, Brandis lay bleeding to death in a bath over 3 hours while Muse read a Star Trek book. Muse described Brandis needing to urinate at one point.
Oh.
And this is following the amputation, so then he detailed Muse having difficulties due to the removal of his cock and ghoulishly manipulating the wound in a pseudo-sexual, like, masturbatory fashion while marveling about no longer possessing a penis. Now, this was not in any of the notes, but that was in the book. So I pulled that back in. But yes, he actually said, like, he started playing with it as though it was a clit, because he had to actually find his urethra and hold it open to allow himself to urinate. Yeah, it's horrible.
So you need to really triple down on this fucking trigger warning, because this is disgusting.
Isn't it? Like,
I haven't been as triggered since I read American Psycho for the first time.
And the rat sequence or all that.
That's
Yes.
exactly what I'm fucking thinking about. Jesus Christ.
It's really visceral.
I would want to burn a copy of that book just for that scene.
Yes.
I get satire. I get the whole fucking thing. It's a
tough.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's really, and so this, like, to have been given this book under the auspices that, like, I'd really enjoy it. It's like, I've read a lot of ghastly things, but that's not what is the alluring facet of this to me. The gore of it is not the thing that gets me. It's the
No.
psychological underpinnings.
You're not, like, you're not watching Hostel and Saw.
Right.
Like,
So in any event, this was really hard to get through, and that part in particular made me really squeamish and kind of uncomfortable. So I'm like, I get to share my trauma with all of you. So this is like a weird therapy session. So 10 hours later. Now this is after 3 hours have already passed. 10 hours later, Brandis is still alive, and Muse then had to stab him several times in the neck to kill him. Muse would later explain, "My friend enjoyed dying and death. I only waited horrified for the end after doing the deed. It took so terribly long."
Oh, poor fucking you.
But I mean, also, you like, contextually, this, like, you heard of monsters who have no remorse, who have no feeling at all, and he's basically just saying, it's like, I didn't want to go through with this. I just wanted to eat the person. I didn't want to kill him. It's like, hey, listen, I just wanted to steal the money. I didn't want to shoot anybody.
Oh, it's
so
like I wanted to eat the beef. I didn't want to kill the cow.
Exactly. So I think, like, actually,
not calling him a cow or anything, but
I mean, like,
same fucking
same
food.
correlation.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like, you go past fantasy into reality, and most of the times people then point to the fantasy basically like falling away because it was so wonderful to them. The fantasy to him was not worth it and kind of terrified him. So in any event, Muse then, in the fun aftermath section of this, Muse then put parts of Brandis in the freezer and then buried his head in his garden.
Did he expect another Brandis to grow?
He planted tulips in his garden, apparently. But then the cannibalism began.
The worst pun you have ever said on air.
Hurt.
And
That
almost off.
hurt.
Yes. Apparently, there is a bar somewhere. It's like a gentleman's club where they all get together. And anytime someone says a bad pun, they all have to throw their glasses into the fireplace. So everyone who's drinking in the room
You would
has to
have
throw.
no glassware.
I would not be allowed in that place at all. Guaranteed.
They already have your picture posted.
Well, they should. Welcome to the Punisher. So Muse.
Fuck yourself.
Jeez, I can't,
So Muse hung Brandis's lifeless body on a meat hook and proceeded to cut the flesh into sizable chunks and grind the bones into flour.
For his bread. He's an ogre.
Thank you
fee,
for
fi,
some
fo,
much
fum.
needed fucking levity. And also, I
fi,
am
fo.
F-bombing as hard as I can right
should.
now because I am just traumatized.
Now wait for the joke. Fee, fi, fo, fum, you're about to make me come. I like that you looked at my penis when I said that. Thank you, John.
Well, it's out.
Yes. I'm sorry, I can't put it away. I'm too excited. So, he dismembered the entire body so he could store the parts in his freezer.
He almost got to spit out his beer.
Spit take. I'm trying to lightly roll over some of these things. I've almost killed John.
All right, I'm back.
Which parts do you want to eat first, Michael? So
He looks too scrawny.
he then
I'll
proceeded
shrivel
to
up.
eat the parts that he had harvested in the following 10 months.
He ate him over a 10
10-month period.
Like freezing and
Yep.
pulling back out. Well, I hope he got it down.
So for you first Albert Fish fans that have hung with us for our first
Oh,
actual meal that he ate was a piece of rump steak, a piece from his back, which was for a special occasion. Muse then laid out candles, his good dinnerware, and wine. He ate it, by the way, with potatoes and sprouts.
Okay.
Here's your fun German here again, John. After I prepared my meal, I ate it. The first bite was, of course, very strange. It was a feeling I can't really describe. I'd spent over 40 years longing for it, dreaming about it. And now I was getting the feeling I was actually achieving this perfect inner connection through his flesh. The flesh tastes like pork, but more like pork with a purpose. There is a charged sensuality to the meat, as it longed to be consumed. I could detect hints of the desire, and he was close to me with every bite.
So,
Long pork.
well, he's a fucking nerd.
Nerd.
Yeah, basic.
You're done. You're well done.
You're well done. You bring up Albert Fish. I've spaced on when that happened.
Oh, yeah, that was like
So
early.
yeah, so I just looked it up. Albert, he died in 36.
Yes.
So he probably did the rump steak. He probably knew about Albert Fish.
I'm sure he looked it up because, I mean,
what,
the
30
famed
years,
cannibals,
almost 30
yeah.
years. Like, I wonder if maybe...
Well, I mean, Fish, all that stuff was like early 1900s. So, I mean, he had 100 years to bloody play around with this by the time we get to the thousands. So
He also had the internet.
Thank you. So, in the end, Meiwes said, neither of them had their fantasies fulfilled. Everybody shed a tear for the poor cannibal couple.
Oh, man.
Sad.
Today I know that what I did was wrong, he told the film crew. The wishes, the fantasies you have, that these could never be fulfilled. That these things you dream about could only be a dream. Life could be a dream, eat cock. Shadoom, shadoom, shoom, shoom,
Roll credits.
shaboom, doodoo, doodoo. So, the entire process of Brandis' penis amputation and subsequent death had been recorded on videotape by the pair, as I mentioned earlier, and would later be used as evidence against Meiwes in court.
Is that real?
I can't imagine him saying anything other than guilty. And
Just go ahead and let me know. We've missed the lie.
You have missed the lie.
Ah,
Yes.
fuck.
So, Meiwes was arrested in December of 2002 when hunting down more victims proved to be his undoing. Meiwes told another prospective victim that he wouldn't be the first. And the man then went to police.
Look at me, killing my second victim. I have the evidence over here. The cuffs are over here. Thank you very much.
Oh, trust me, you're not the first person that I've sold bad pot
Well
to.
done.
So, the man went to police, who subsequently discovered several pounds of Brandis at Meiwes' isolated
How's
farmhouse.
that not a band name?
Several pounds of Brandis. Yes, their
There we go.
first record's going to be Hard Pig. So, they discovered the meat he claimed was wild pig in a deep freezer, which had a false bottom. But oh, God. So at his trial, several men who harbored fantasies of eating human flesh testified that there was a large network of like-minded individuals who connected through cyberspace in a bid to satisfy their fantasies. In an odd testament to the impotency of preventative legislation, no German laws made cannibalism a crime. As such,
So
the
he only
charges
got
against
convicted of
Meiwes
murder?
were murder for purposes of sexual pleasure, which apparently is a crime, and disturbing the peace of the dead. Or disturbing a piece of the dead, at the very least.
Is there any follow-up? Like, after this happened, did they put that into
Yes.
legislation?
Yeah, that- I
like,
will
where they're
get
like,
into that.
oh, fuck.
Yeah, like, my
Well,
bad.
shit.
We actually didn't imagine human beings were this depraved, but now we know, and knowing is half the battle, G.I. Joe.
Whoopsie.
Still, the defendant claimed he had hesitated before going through with the murder, so, you know, if the cock don't quit, you must acquit. Is that?
And if
you know?
Yeah.
Sekiro
Yeah.
taught me anything, hesitation is defeat.
Indeed. So his quote is, "I wanted to eat him. I didn't want to kill him." Meiwes' defense was that there was no crime, as the victim was complicit in his own execution. The video showed Brandis giving consent up until the moment he lost consciousness. Lawyers suggested this was a mercy killing. There would then be 2 trials. In the first, the judge gave him 8.5 years, saying that it was not murder, but a case of 2 psychologically sick people who found each other. That's a tagline for a film coming out next year with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks.
David Fincher movie.
Fincher directing Tom Hanks, that'd be a beautiful movie to watch.
I ship that.
I want it. So a retrial then sent him away for life. In 2007, Tom Hanks is an actor, Michael.
Oh,
I'm sure we may not have clarified this.
He made such films as Fight Club.
And 7 and Alien
Tom
3.
Hanks did not make Fight
No,
Club.
David Fincher.
Oh.
No, Tom Hanks did. Colin Hanks was in it. You don't remember?
I know who Colin Hanks is.
You know the sad thing?
I liked when he was in Dexter.
I was going to say, Colin Hanks
peasant.
ruined Dexter for me. Son of a bitch.
Thanks for letting me call you an idiot, since you're the smartest person in the room most times.
Squeeze me?
Don't mind if I do.
Ooh.
Speaking of who I loved in Dexter, though, Lithgow is
Oh,
God
yes.
in the 4th season. Anywho, we digress so much. This is going to be our 2-hour episode, John, so get ready. In 2007, the UK Daily Mail reported that he has since become the head of the Prison Green Party, pun intended, and a group of murderers and pedophiles who talk about how to make the world a better place.
When they say a better place, do they mean for everyone or for themselves?
For them.
For those who have a taste for meat.
Okay. Just making sure.
The Mail also noted that the cannibal has become a vegetarian, as I alluded to earlier. After killing Brandis, he admitted that he had his big kick, and I don't need to do it again.
What a piece of shit.
Even though he got caught trying to do it again.
Hey, listen, I had a couple good meals. It's like when you try to back your way out of, like, Blue Apron, where you're like, hey, listen, I had it a couple times. It's okay, but it's not worth the money.
I can cook now.
I'll just buy my own shit at a store. You're good. Like, free-range humans, just not for me. I'm sorry. I liked it, but...
I like it with the antibiotics.
Oh, and here, even better. He said his victim came to me of his own free will to end his life. For him, it was a nice death.
Oh, yeah, it sounds real pleasant. I mean,
Yes.
just 8 hours bleeding out, getting to find your urethra.
Hey, he was given a, like nice little melange of cough syrup and
butt
schnapps and, a little, prostate milking beforehand. So
Did he read Star Trek? Was that a lie?
No, that was
Damn it.
absolutely the truth.
Damn it.
He was convicted of manslaughter on January 30th, 2004, and was jailed for 8 years during his time in prison.
8? That's it?
Well, initially, and then they gave him the life for the secondary thing. But so there's a bunch of other stuff here, like his cultural impact, like the song "Mein Thiel" by German band Rammstein was inspired by the case.
Oh.
Thiel literally translates to part or member, and is German slang for penis. The chorus of Mein Thiel includes the line, German, which translates to, you are what you eat and you know what it is.
Sounds like Rammstein.
Oh, God. There's other songs that are inspired by Muse's story, which include the Wüstenfeld Man-Eater, which was a Hall & Oates, I believe, in 1987, if I recall. Oh, here he comes. Watch your cocks, he'll chew 'em up. Oh, here he comes. So, anywho, Marilyn Manson's album, Eat Me, Drink Me, also inspired by this killing.
Jesus.
So, yeah, lots of this stuff. But that, boils and ghouls, is the sick and macabre tale surrounding the cannibal of Rotenburg.
Gonna go ahead and say that was the most disgusting episode ever.
Yeah.
And we're post.
We're amongst
now.
friends here, so I mean, yeah, we can talk amongst
Michael?
ourselves.
I have to ask, how did you react to this gift? Like, what did you tell him? Like, you finished the book, put it down, like, thanks
additional
for that read.
question onto that. How
Okay.
long did it take you to read the book once it was gifted?
So
you have a queue usually.
Yes, so he gave it to me on my birthday. I don't think that I had a bunch of stuff going, and out of a courtesy, I read it pretty quickly. So I would say like maybe 2 weeks. And the only commentary that I had afterwards, I was like, well, thanks, but that was fucked up. I was like, do you know anything about this case? He's like, oh, no, I picked it up on,
It's like the picture on the cover, and it said something about dicks and killing, and I
he
thought
said
you'd like it.
he just went and
dicks.
grabbed it out of Barnes & Noble because it was in the section for like true crime, and he's like, oh, I don't know this one, so maybe Shane will read it and tell me about it. That was the
used
description
you.
I was given. Yeah, so yeah, I got to beta test for the Brussels muscle Russell. Yeah, I'm a beta male. Mm-hmm. So, you ready for the lie, or do we want to take a few more stabs?
I'm good. I stabbed it harder than he stabbed the dick.
Fine point.
Nah.
Okay.
No.
It's the quote about the flesh that was consumed. I doctored. So the initial quote was, the flesh tastes like pork, but stronger. He was close to me with every bite. My amended quote was that it was pork with a purpose, and that there was a charged sensuality to the meat, and it
that was
longed
way
to
more
be
artistic.
consumed.
Yeah.
He's not very eloquent.
You call him a nerd and everything.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But
Well
again,
done.
with all this bullshit happening, there was no way I was going to make up something that was even more intense than any of this nonsense. So that was the one thing I found, and so it was kind of my ode to, if I was going to do something that had no lie in it, this was as close as I was going to get, really.
Yeah.
after the Philadelphia experiment. So there
Yeah,
you are.
I would say this is the first true crime installment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
haven't done
That
anything
was
else like it.
rough.
I feel like it was an interesting enough topic, and again, he's not a killer that you hear about very routinely. It's not something that's commonly pointed to. I had not heard of him prior to the book, so it was an easy topic for me based on the fact I knew neither of you would have known a damn thing about it. So
Now, if you guys enjoyed how brutal, sorry, got some cock in my throat.
it tastes
if
like
you
pork
guys-
with purpose.
Yeah, essential.
For purpose.
If that kind of story is okay with you, like, or not okay, but if that's the kind of true crime you're looking
Yes.
for, early episode, last podcast on the left,
Mm-hmm.
they cover the toy box killer. That, I think, is their first serial killer episode.
Okay.
To this day, it's the way to weed out the weak for that show.
Okay.
Like, if Henry Zabrowski does readings from the tape that the Toy Box Killer recorded, and oh my god, it's when I first started listening, like diving deep into their back catalog, and I can connect my phone onto our work speakers. So sometimes when I'm opening, if I'm riding into work listening to a podcast, pause it on Spotify, go inside, cast it onto the speakers, and I was doing that thinking I was alone, and I wasn't. Our GM was in the store, and I'm opening, like, it's just us there, and I'm not going to say anything about Toy Box because I don't want to, like, further dampen this dark episode.
Darkest timeline, John.
But the moment she rounded the corner and I saw her face, I paused it and I was like, hey, so I'm not a psychopath.
Important to clarify.
But anyway, check that out. I think this is me gifting you a book on your birthday.
Thank you. Don't touch your nipples while you do it, or we can't talk anymore. We're not friends. So I have.
It'll fuck you up.
Yes.
That's a warning. It's not good.
Well, like Man in the Window with the Golden State Killer stuff, like it's really graphic as well. So I was hesitant about doing the topic, but I felt like it was good. But I really wanted to make sure I couched that caveat. Like, this is not something I'm going to do commonly. It was interesting enough that after the My Immortal episode, it made me think about it, which is different because we're on the total opposite end of the spectrum. But I was like, it's also so weird that it's like, here's a couple of men, and it's like, here, cut off my cock and eat it. Like, okay, let's share it together. It's just an interesting set of circumstances. So.
And I think it kind of lends itself well. I don't know if we're on this format or not, and if this isn't good to talk about, we can just edit this section out. But are we doing one on, one off, one on, one off? Is that where we've landed?
Kind of. I mean,
we can. We don't have to.
Doing that, then you can hit heavy topics. It's fine because then the listeners next week know
we'll
that
get
it's
them a
gonna,
let up. Yeah.
Yeah, or you take the foot off a little bit, let them breathe. But,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of podcasts that only do every other week.
Yeah.
So if like the heavier stuff is what you're into, then you just have to tune in every other week. I mean, you can listen to the other stuff too. I mean,
Please listen to the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we need
But-
the 2 downloads for each episode.
It's
yeah,
important.
please. I
No,
was so
but anyway.
surprised by that.
I liked the topic.
Okay.
I'm glad you chose it.
Thank
I'm
you.
disgusted.
As well you should be.
That being said, I had no idea that I'm truly blind. I think, Michael, what's a little teaser? What's the topic that you're working on right now?
Oh,
Are you
it's
working
a
on
little-
the internet?
Yeah, the internet. Literally
Yeah.
the history of the internet. It's going to be a 30-part series involving
Al
DARPA,
Gore. And,
Al Gore, who invented it. The fact that the internet started as just a bunch of wires in a box.
How many rules did the internet have?
Well, that actually depends on who you're asking and where you're going from. There's a lot. I'm going to talk about the rules of the internet.
Okay.
That's
Kind of what I was getting at.
I know.
That sounds like a deep dive.
No.
No?
Not at all.
It'll
It'll be very lighthearted. Very funny.
No, I mean, like, it sounds like there's a lot to get through.
No, we won't be covering, we'll be covering the nice ones. As in, I don't want to talk about 4chan. Because we don't need to talk about 4chan. Maybe in the future.
I would agree.
But
I think you let those little incel bastards just stay far away.
Yeah. We don't need 4chan. We don't need Anonymous.
Yeah, I think we're just going to leave the Voldemort sections of the podcast to me. I'll be the one that touches the deep, dark corners and turns the stones over.
I mean, I might do like
bullet
some other
time
things
as
in the
you
future,
break
but
in through Hogwarts.
Hold on, I'll let you guys get dressed.
In my Avril Lavigne, hoodie that I'm wearing.
What a poser!
Yeah. Well, so that's kind of what we have coming up then. I'm good to do the on off.
Yeah,
thing.
I think it'll be
feel
fun.
like
It gives
that's
us a
natural.
palate cleanser between things. And also, I realize I have stopped introing the show. So if someone is coming in like their first time, we have
that's
no
right.
real preface for what's happening.
Oh, I don't think we've actually like introed in like
No, we have
at
not.
least like
so
12, 15 episodes.
So I'm going to start bringing that back just so on the episodes where we have the format, I need to make sure that I include that. So my apologies to those who are, if this is your first time listening,
The fuck is this?
I'm very sorry.
The fuck
I
is that?
can't offer
I
to
feel-
pick up your therapy bill, but
I hope contextually that you understood that there was a lie the entire time.
yes, it's important.
Whoa.
And that Shane isn't a serial killer. He is naked right now.
On record, I'm not convicted.
And on record, he isn't naked. Wink.
Wink.
Wink. But an interesting thing before we get gone here. Are we like 47
I
hours
don't care.
in?
I have a lot of editing
Okay.
to do. No, it's
well,
fine.
This will be about the length of the last
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
so
which is fine. I'm cool with that.
we're on par.
Yeah.
I was listening to the Rogan podcast the other day, which for everyone who wants to bruh me, but he had the reason being I cherry pick his episodes with people that I'm interested to hear.
Scrub, yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, there's a lot to go through.
He had Robert Downey Jr. on.
Oh, this week?
No, it was probably like a little while ago, maybe like a couple weeks. And so really interesting and compelling discussion with one of the most erudite and kind of charismatic individuals in American popular culture these days. But he said something that he learned from Warren Beatty, which I realized I could then retcon and kind of insert into my own discussions because we took a good friend of ours who's no longer with us, Chad, on a trip up to Jerome with us when we were still routinely doing shows up there. And he and I had this exact conversation just with different verbiage. But they were shooting a film where Beatty was kind of directing the film, and if I'm remembering correctly. And so he was telling Robert, he's like, I don't really like what you're doing in these takes, so try this. He's like, what's your action? And, RDJ is kind of like, well, I really enjoy having sex with all these women, and I kind of have a compulsion with it, and I'm having this, and there's warring emotions doing all this. He's like, nope, what's your action? Like, okay, and he starts explaining. He goes through 4 or 5 different permutations of what he should be saying and doing, and he's like, nope, your action is you need to go to work. And you're trying to go to work, and all of these other things keep happening, and all this other, but he said the thing to keep in the back of your mind, which is going to control how you respond to everything, is you're trying to get to work. And then that is Robert Downey Jr.'s kind of like governing principle for everything he does in his life now. Basically, from how many times it came up, he's like, well, what's my action? What's my action? What am I supposed to be doing here? And for Chad and I, we were talking about this, is like most of your performers get up and want to play songs that people know and catch folks that way and kind of immerse them. And he said, for us, we didn't really do a lot of cover songs, and we just kind of played what we wanted to play, and people still listened, and people still came up and gave us money, and he was kind of nonplussed. And I figured
This
out...
was in 4-8?
Yeah. And the conversation I had with him was basically saying, like, my action is, we're here to play the songs, and so my action is, I'm here to emote. So if I'm connecting with my own material and I feel it, I'm far more apt to perform and entertain people than if I'm playing a song I hate. Right. Just because like people want to hear it, because I won't put the same enthusiasm into it. So it's like my approach has always been, my action is this. So as a songwriter, I'm connected to this stuff. So when we do covers that we play where I feel more attached to it, I'm apt to play it better because I care about it. So it was an interesting conversation, but like hearing that episode really brought that. I was wondering, so what for you when we play, and then we'll get Michael's, for like marching band kind of instances or other things, or talk about teaching, maybe things like it. But what's your action? What do you think about when we go on stage? What is it that you're concerned with?
I think you hit the nail. We are very similar as far as that's concerned. I am all about the emotion. I'm all about the connection to the material itself. Like, there are songs that we play when we play them in certain environments that still hurt. And I think that's a big thing. Like, I want to convey the lyrics or convey the emotion that was put into the song properly and make sure that it's felt. Like, that's the only purpose that I have up there.
You've been present with me when I start crying on stage at points, too. So it's like, you connect with it.
It's like we ironically and we sarcastically throw around sad bastard music all the time. But the reason that most of the material that I've wrote, that you've wrote, that we've wrote together, it comes from a real place. And then we just so happen to have a conceptual backing to throw some of the, let's go ahead and say, esoteric shit onto. But yeah, I guess I just want to convey. You know, that's all I care about.
And you guys do a pretty good job, in my opinion, of doing that. Like, I can definitely like feel when you guys are like really getting into it. It was actually going to be a little not as intense, but I could tell that you really enjoy singing "Genie in a Bottle" because you really get into it. And I'm still of the opinion that you sing it a lot more sensually.
Rub him the right way.
You sing it like you that has been the most sensual like listening of it that
yes,
I've ever heard,
I'm sure.
even
I
from
will
the
say
original
that
recording.
It's so silly, but it's my favorite guitar part that I personally have when we do it full band with that like really atmosphere. We fuck up Genie in a Bottle really bad and we make it somber, sexy ballad sounding.
Yeah.
I have like this atmospheric guitar part underneath. Like
it's
in the
very
verses.
shoegazy, basically.
Yeah, where it's like the bass and the drums carry the majority of that verse, but every now and again I just have a little pepper. And every time I hit those notes, it's like, especially with your vocals on there, I feel dirty. But thanks,
great.
Mike.
It works. It's delicious.
That's what we want.
My action for teaching actually is to help understand, is to be understood.
Okay.
I, as you guys can probably guess from talking to me, I'm not very communicative, probably 90% of the time. And so I always have to think of ways to describe what I'm saying. There's always a disconnect between my mouth and my brain. And so I realized that happens a lot with physics. I can't tell you how many times I'll be sitting at the band table or whatever in college, and someone will come up to me and they're like, I'm taking physics 1. I don't understand any of it. Physics is stupid. I hate it. It's like, well, it's not. It's how you approach it. You have to think way differently. Like, there's a reason why I've been told that people in like Wall Street and like big businesses, they like to hire physicists when they graduate because we think so differently. We're very analytical in terms of like, where did things come from? Like, what's the start? What's the cause? What's the effect? And so trying to get that across to people is very difficult, especially because people don't think at all the same. And so because I'm so used to explaining the same thing 13 different times because I fuck up the first 12, I enjoy seeing, like, finding the one thing that like gets them to click. Like, I've told students many times, like, when they're like, oh, I'm like, that's the best sound that I love hearing. Just, oh, like, that honestly like gets me. So
what about when you hear that from your girlfriend?
That doesn't happen. It's more like, oh, or
it shriveled when I fried it.
That
only
that's
happened
it?
once.
That's it.
It's like
Fine, I guess.
that little wall that they had when you were a kid that has all the shapes cut out into it. And then you have to find the block that goes through the hole, and I get you.
Yeah.
The other fun thing about it,
yeah.
like, it relates to the podcast as well. So what's our action here? And it actually kind of connects to the thing with music as well. As I had difficulty connecting to people when I was younger. Like, I didn't really socialize. I'm still really antisocial, and I have to fight to kind of get it through that. So songwriting was kind of the thing that helped to be sort of like an apparatus that would get me to other people, because my personality then just was conveyed that way, and I didn't have to talk. And what's strange, this is now talking to, like, have more connective tissue to people in a way that is actually conveying my thoughts with my mouth, as opposed to music and sort of dancing around the secondary sort of appendage that you have with music.
Right.
Your dick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is mine dick.
Secondary.
Mind dick. So, in any event, thank you, gentlemen, for helping
thank you.
to find
And,
the action.
Nice sieg.
It's fun. It was something I, just wanted to get to talk
cleanser?
about. Yeah, particularly how dark we got here.
And then, we get this nice genuine emotion out at the end of an episode that if anybody survived up to this point, like, you weed them out, just like the Toy Box episode.
Yeah.
If you're at the end, then you know what we think on a real level.
Yeah.
And if you skipped the episode, then you're about 98% of everyone.
And we'll stop beating it over the head, but the other thing that Rogan pointed out, which really pertains to this podcast as well, is how infrequently people actually listen to each other when you're having a conversation. And something I really find I struggle with here as well is you want to get a joke in, or you want to we start talking over each other, and you don't really assimilate what's being said. So a lot of the lies I miss, I find, is because I'm thinking about something I want to say or getting to the point. So I really made a point to be more actively kind of engaged to listening as much as even when I'm presenting now. So I was like, okay, I gleaned a lot of great stuff from the podcast.
And I notice it right now that we're getting to the point of podcasting where we're getting out of the birthing, where you're figuring out for the majority of the first 5 or 10 episodes, we didn't know really where we were recording every time. So locations changed. We didn't have the mics that we wanted, but now we're hitting the stride that every podcast hits, where we have the equipment. Now we know where we want the editing, or what the editing looks like.
Yep.
Thanks, Michael. So now it's time that we're reflecting on other things, on how we can actually make content relatable, approachable, and also, to your point,
ghastly,
listenable. Yeah, no, just listenable in general, because I agree with you, where I listen back to other episodes and I don't remember that conversation happening because of what you pointed out. I'm just sitting here waiting for a chance to get in. It's the people waiting for their turn to talk and not really paying attention. So even more so glad that we're doing the weekly, because way more attentive.
And you're not trying to perform as much. We're not trying to make people feel like they have to listen. Right.
And
what?
It's very fucking obvious listening to me talk that I'm not a stand-up comic. I don't care about the jokes, but we have a good interaction with each other, a good rapport. So sometimes you got to sideline it a little bit.
Well, can I, steal another 5 seconds from you?
Yeah, go
ahead. We
ahead.
actually have a review. And I'm happy to read it. Yeah.
An actual review?
An actual review. It's not this is something I was given personally. So
still,
it is not, but it's someone who's running through.
It's on iTunes.
All right. Well, I will tell this person that they need to run. This isn't even Steven, so this is someone I used to work with. But so it's here we go. To be fair, I'm not sure I'm getting all of the jokes, which that's going to be acceptable.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah. But I think you guys are hilarious. Every episode I want to comment on at least one joke. You can't say your dildo. You have to say a dildo. And since I know you, meaning me, Shane, I enjoy listening to your constant barrage of jokes trying to crack everybody else up. And then they have to plow right over you. It's yep, that's someone who knows me. I like John's dry humor. He's got good one-liners. And then I think it's funny when you surprise a big laugh out of Michael. He's got a good laugh.
Oh, no. Now I'm going to
blush. You. And then it was saying, I keep wondering what you guys would be like if there was a girl in the room.
That's fair.
Which,
I wouldn't be able to talk.
And this is a good friend, so shout out to Melanie, who gave me this review for having. Thanks, Melanie. Finally cajoled her into listening to this stuff, and she's been giving me active feedback of really liked the Goop episode. She's the one that sent me this candle smells like your pussy and nonsense. She pointed out why we have not had an episode on the flying spaghetti monster yet.
Oh,
so that might get in the works. So she's asking if we take submissions and requests. So I was sure. Yeah, we will definitely do that. So
I can do dibs. I call dibs.
Yeah.
Oh, I want Shane to do it.
I mean, I'm the one who's got the affiliation, my friend.
He married me as he married 2 people under a Pastafarian ministry.
I didn't know
Kristen's going to be very upset. Huh? She performed your ceremony.
Sorry.
I was present for it, but
to be honest, you're always in my heart.
God bless you. I was poking you in the ass that entire time, so I mean, I was present. But...
Well, gentlemen, we are getting to longer than last week.
Yes, that's what I was striving for, because you look really uncomfortable that you keep checking to see, so I want to draw this out as much as I can. So we got another 20 minutes in us, so here we go.
Yeah, fuck me.
Oh, so thank you. Longest podcast ever, kids. Not even close. But it's...
No, this was.
Well,
This
meaning
is.
not the longest ever for anybody.
No,
It's the longest we've done. So
Yeah.
thank you all for being here. Last words, John.
Spaghetti.
Last words, Michael.
banana.
And the last word from me is... John is an asshole.
I'll count that.
All right, last words from me are it's pork with a purpose. So,
Sensual and tasty.
thank you, all of you lovely listeners, for hanging out with us for another really gory edition. And I hope that you stuck around. Our apologies up front. And, hopefully we're not going to have too many trigger warnings going forward. We're just going to keep it nice and uplifting until I open my mouth again. But for the Disinformed podcast, I'm Shane.
I'm John.
And I'm Michael.
And this is the ASMR.
And I'm half the man I used to be.
We're not doing that.
Just want to take a thank all of you for listening.
My little tasty treat if you want to come.
I will edit this ASMR out if I have to. By Jove.
That's going to be the end of the episode, folks. Thank you, fuck you, bye. And, thank you for coming. Don't worry. We'll eat it after we've seasoned it and fried it for a moment until it shrivels.
I thought you were just going to say we'll eat it up.
I mean, we might. For 10 months.
Is that a fade out?
I'll fade you out.